or stay busy just for the sake of being busy. Nor will they, as you might think, get so caught up in ambitious plans that they have to constantly deal with their ups and downs. No. When they see dangers, uncertainties, and risks they used to face, they will gradually pull back to a safer position, not by turning their back to the enemy, but by slowly retreating to safety. It's easy to escape from business, my dear Lucilius, if you only stop valuing the rewards it offers. We're held back and kept from leaving by thoughts like these. What then should I leave behind these great prospects? Should I walk away just as I'm about to reap the rewards? Should I give up having slaves at my side, a grand entourage, or a crowded reception room? That's why people leave these advantages so reluctantly. They love the rewards of their hard work, but hate the work itself. People complain about their ambitions just like they complain about their lovers. In other words, if you look closely at the true feelings, you'll find not hatred but bickering. If you examine the minds of those who criticize what they once desired and talk about escaping from things they can't live without, you'll see that they're staying in that situation by choice, even though they say it's hard and miserable. It's true, my dear Lucilius. A few people are trapped by slavery, but many more cling to it themselves. If you truly want to be free from this slavery, if freedom genuinely appeals to you, and you're seeking advice on how to achieve it without constant trouble, how could all the Stoic philosophers fail to support your decision? Zeno, Chrysippus, and all other followers would give you advice that is moderate, honorable, and appropriate. But if you keep looking back to see how much you can take with you, how much money you can keep to support your life of leisure, you'll never find a way out. No one can swim to shore while carrying their baggage with them. Rise to a higher life with the help of the gods, but don't seek the kind of favor the gods sometimes give. When they, with kind faces, bestow great misfortunes that end up causing irritation and suffering, all because they are granted in response to prayers. I was just about to seal this letter, but I'll reopen it to include its usual contribution. Some wise words. Here's one that comes to mind. I'm not sure if its truth or its eloquence is greater. Who said it, you ask? Epicurus, of course. I'm still borrowing from others. The words are, everyone leaves life just as if they had only just entered it. Catch anyone off guard, whether young, old, or middle-aged, and you'll find that they're all equally afraid of death and equally ignorant of life. No one has anything completed because we keep putting off all our tasks for the future. The part of this quote that I like most is how it points out that old men are like infants. No one, he says, leaves this world any differently than someone who has just been born. But that's not entirely true. We're actually worse off when we die than when we are born. But that's our fault, not nature's. Nature should scold us, saying, what's the meaning of this? I brought you into the world without desires or fears, free from superstition, betrayal, and other curses. Now you leave as you were when you entered. A person has truly grasped wisdom if they can die as free from worry as they were at birth. But as it is, we become agitated as the dreaded end approaches. Our courage fails, our faces turn pale, and our tears fall, even though they're useless. But what could be more shameful than to worry at the very moment when peace is within reach? The reason for this is that we've lost everything valuable. We've thrown overboard the cargo of life and are now in distress because of nothing has been saved. People don't care about living nobly. They only care about living long. Yet it's within everyone's power to live nobly, but within no one's power to live long. Farewell. Letter 23. On the true joy which comes from philosophy. Do you think I'm going to write to you about how mild and short the winter has been? Or unpleasant the spring is, with its unexpected cold? And all other small talk people write about when they can't think of anything else? No. I want to share something that can help both you and me. And what would that be, if not some advice on how to have a healthy mind? You ask what the foundation of a healthy mind is. It's not finding joy in useless things. I said it was the foundation, but it's really the highest point. We've reached the top if we know what truly makes us happy, and if we haven't placed our happiness in the hands of external things. The person who is driven by hope for anything, even if it's within reach, even if it's easy to get, and even if their dreams have never let them down, is still troubled and unsure of themselves. Above all, my dear Lucilius, make it your priority to learn how to feel real joy. Do you think I'm taking away many of your pleasures by trying to steer you away from the gifts of chance? By advising you to avoid hope, which is often considered the sweetest thing that brightens our hearts? Quite the opposite. I don't want you to ever be without joy. I want it to be born in your own home, and it will be if it comes from within you. Other things that bring happiness don't fill a person's heart. They only smooth their brow and are unpredictable. Unless you think that someone who laughs is truly joyful. Real joy must come from deep within and be steady, rising above all circumstances. Real joy, believe me, is serious business. Can someone truly despise death with a carefree attitude, or with a light and happy expression, as some young people like to say? Can someone welcome poverty, control their desires, or face the endurance of pain with ease? The person who thinks deeply about these things in their heart is indeed full of joy, but it's not a shallow, cheerful joy. This is the kind of joy I want you to have, because once you find its source, it will never leave you. The shallow joy from trivial things is like the surface of poor mines, only a thin layer of pleasure. The real treasure lies deep, and those who dig deeper will find richer rewards. Similarly, the little joys that please the common crowd are only superficial, like a thin coating, and every joy that's only skin deep lacks a solid foundation. But the joy I'm talking about, the one I'm trying to lead you to, is something solid, revealing more of itself as you go deeper into it. So, my dear Lucilius, I urge you to do the one thing that can make you truly happy. Cast aside and trample underfoot all those things that glitter on the outside and are offered to you by someone else.
Are you listening to the Stoicism at all, dear? It's really beautiful, isn't it?
Good and find joy only in what comes from within you. And what do I mean by within you? I mean the best part of you, your very self. The frail body, even though we can't do anything without it, should be seen as necessary rather than important. It drags us into pointless pleasures, which are short-lived and soon regretted. Unless they are controlled by strong self-discipline, these pleasures can quickly turn into their opposites, sorrow and pain. But it's hard to control something you believe to be good. Real good can be desired safely. Do you ask me what this real good is and where it comes from? I'll tell you. It comes from good conscience, from honorable purposes, from right actions, from not caring about the gifts of chance, and from living a steady and calm life that follows one consistent path. People who constantly jump from one goal to another, or are just carried along by chance, how can they ever possess any good that is stable and lasting? Only a few people control themselves and their lives by a clear purpose. The rest don't progress. They're just swept along the objects floating in a river. And of those objects, some are held back by slow-moving water and drift gently. Others are swept along by a stronger current. Some, which are closest to the shore, are left behind as the current slows. Others are carried out to sea by the rushing stream. That's why we should decide what we want and stick to that decision. Now, it's time for me to share something of value with you. I can give you a saying from your friend Epicurus and clear this letter of its obligation. It's troublesome to always be starting life over. Or another, which might express it better, they live poorly who are always beginning to live. You're right to ask why. This saying does need some explanation. It's because the life of such people is always incomplete. But a person cannot be ready for death if they've only just begun to live. We must aim to have already lived long enough. No one thinks they have done so if they're still in the process of planning their life. Don't think that there are only a few people like this. Almost everyone is like this. Some people only start living when it's time for them to stop living. And if this surprises you, I'll add something that will surprise you even more. Some people stop living before they even begin. Farewell. Letter 24. On despising death. You wrote to me that you're worried about the outcome of a lawsuit when an angry opponent is threatening you. You probably expect me to tell you to imagine a better outcome and to take comfort in hope. But why should we invite trouble that will come soon enough anyway? Or spoil the present by fearing the future? It's silly to be unhappy now just because you might be unhappy later. Instead, I'll guide you to peace of mind in a different way. If you want to stop worrying, assume that what you fear will definitely happen. Whatever the trouble may be, think about it in your mind and measure how much it really scares you. This way, you'll understand that what you fear is either small or won't last long. You don't need to spend much time finding examples to strengthen yourself. Every time in history has them. Look back at any period in Roman or foreign history, and you'll find many examples of people who face challenges with courage. If you lose this case, what could happen that's worse than being exiled or imprisoned? Is there anything more frightening than being burned or killed? List these penalties one by one and think of the people who have faced them bravely. It's not hard to find them, just a matter of choosing. Rutilius accepted his unjust conviction as if the unfairness was the only thing that bothered him. Metellus faced exile with courage, and Rutilius even with happiness. Metellus returned only because his country called him back, but Rutilius refused to return when Sulla summoned him, and no one said no to Sulla. Socrates spoke wisely in prison and refused to escape when given the chance. He stayed there to free people from the fear of two of the most dreaded things, death and imprisonment. Mucius put his hand in the fire. It's painful to be burned, but how much more painful to do it to yourself? Mucius was not a learned man, prepared by wisdom to face death and pain, but just a soldier with courage. He punished himself for his failed attempt by letting his hand burn away on the enemy's brazier, not pulling it back until his enemy removed the fire. He might have achieved something more successful in that camp, but never anything braver. Notice how much more eager a brave person is to face danger than a cruel person is to inflict it. Cinna was quicker to forgive Mucius for trying to kill him than Mucius was to forgive himself for failing.
What can I do?
You might say, oh, those stories have been told over and over in schools. Next you'll tell me about Cato when talking about despising death. But why shouldn't I tell you about Cato? How he read Plato's book on his last glorious night, with a sword beside his bed. He had prepared these two things for his final moments: the will to die and the means to do it. He put his affairs in order as best he could in a world that was falling apart, and made sure no one could either kill or save Cato. Drawing the sword, which he had kept unstained by blood until the last day, he said, "Fortune, you've achieved nothing by resisting all my efforts. I've fought for my country's freedom, not for my own. I didn't strive so hard to be free, but only to live among free people. Now, since humanity's future is hopeless, let Cato be saved." With those words, he inflicted a mortal wound on himself. After the doctors patched him up, Cato had less blood and strength, but no less courage. Angry not only at Caesar, but also at himself, he used his hands to reopen his wound and forced out, rather than let go, his noble soul that had defied all worldly power. I'm not bringing up these examples to show off my wit, but to encourage you to face what is often seen as the most terrifying thing: death. And I'll do this more easily by showing that not only the strong have faced the moment of death with courage, but even some who were otherwise weak have shown bravery in this regard. Take Scipio, the father-in-law of Gnaeus Pompeius, for example. When a headwind drove his ship back to the African coast, and he saw it was in enemy hands, he pierced his body with a sword. When asked where the commander was, he replied, "All is well with the commander." These words brought him up to the level of his ancestors and kept the glory that fate gave to Scipius in Africa intact. It was a great deed to conquer Carthage, but an even greater deed to conquer death. All is well with the commander. How else should a general die? especially one of Cato's generals. I won't refer you to history or gather examples of people who have despised death throughout the ages, because there are many. Look at our own times, which are often criticized for being weak and overly refined. Even now, you'll find people of every rank, life situation, and age who have ended their troubles through death. Believe me, Lucilius, death is so little to be feared that because of it, nothing else should be feared. So when your enemy threatens you, listen calmly. Even if your conscience gives you confidence, remember that many things can affect the outcome. Things beyond your control. Hope for future justice, but also prepare yourself for the worst injustice. But above all, strip away all things that disturb and confuse you, and see what each thing really is at its core. You'll realize that nothing is truly scary, except fear itself. What happens to boys happens to us too. We're just slightly bigger boys. When someone they love and play with every day appears wearing a mask, they are terrified. We should take the mask off not just people, but also things, and see them for what they really are. Why do you scare me with swords, fires, and a crowd of executioners? Take away all that useless show, behind which you hide and scare fools. You are nothing but death. Even my servant and maid did not fear yesterday. Why do you try to frighten me with whips, racks, and all other tools for tearing a person apart? Get rid of all this stuff that makes us freeze in terror, and silence the groans, cries, and bitter screams of the victim on the rack. You are just pain scorned by the man with gout, endured by the person with indigestion, and bravely borne by a woman in labor. You are small if I can bear you, and short if I can hold. Think about these words, which you've heard and said many times. Then prove by your actions whether what you've heard and said is true. Our philosophy is often criticized for focusing on words rather than actions, which is a shameful accusation. What? Did you just now realize that death is always hanging over your head? That exile or grief could happen at any moment? You were born into these dangers. Let's think of everything that could happen as something that will happen. I know you've already done what I'm advising you to do. Now I'm warning you to not let these little worries overwhelm your soul. If you do, your soul will be dulled and won't have enough strength left when the time comes for it to rise. Focus on the bigger picture, not just your personal case. Remind yourself that our bodies are mortal and fragile. Pain can come from many sources, not just from injustice or the power of others. Even our pleasures can become torment. Feasts lead to indigestion, parties to muscle paralysis, and bad habits affect our bodies in many painful ways. I may become poor. I will then be one among many. I may be exiled. I will then consider myself born in the place I'm sent to. They may put me in chains. What of it? Am I free from bonds now? Look at this heavy burden of a body that nature has chained me to. I shall die, you say. You mean to say I shall stop risking sickness, imprisonment, and death. I'm not so foolish as to repeat the arguments Epicurus always uses, saying that the terrors of the underworld are baseless, that Ixion doesn't spin on his wheel, Sisyphus doesn't push his stone uphill, and no one's insides are eaten and restored every day. No one is so childish as to fear Cerberus, ghosts, or skeletons. Death either frees us or ends us. If we are released, the better part of us remains after the burden is lifted. If we are ended, nothing remains. Good and bad alike disappear. Let me quote a verse of yours here, reminding you that when you wrote it, you meant it for yourself just as much as for others. It's shameful to say one thing and mean another, and even more shameful to write one thing and mean another. I remember one day you were discussing the common idea that we don't suddenly fall into death, but move towards it gradually. We die every day. Every day, a little of our life is taken from us. Even as we grow, our life is shrinking. We lose our childhood, then our boyhood, and then our youth. Even yesterday is lost time. The day we're living now is shared between us and death. It's not the last drop that empties the water closet, but all the drops that came before it. Similarly, the final hour when we stop living doesn't bring death on its own. It simply completes the process. We reach death at that moment, but we've been moving toward it for a long time. When describing this, you said in your usual style, which is always impressive, but especially powerful when you're speaking the truth. Death doesn't come just once. The death that takes us away is simply last of all. I'd rather you read your own words than my letter. That way you'll see that the death we fear is the last, but not the only death. I see what you're looking for. You want to know what wise saying I've included in this letter. What useful advice I've packed in. So, I'll give you something that ties it into what we've been discussing. Epicurus criticizes those who both crave and fear death. It's absurd, he says, to run towards death because you're tired of life when it's the way you've lived that makes you run towards death. And in another passage, what could be more absurd than seeking death when your fear of death has robbed your life of peace? You might also consider this third statement. People are so thoughtless, even mad, that some force themselves to die out of fear of death. Whichever of these ideas you focus on, you'll strengthen your mind to face both death and life. We need to be warned and strengthened in both directions, not to love or hate life too much. Even when reason tells us it's time to end it, we shouldn't act impulsively or recklessly. The brave and wise person shouldn't rush to leave life, but should exit in a dignified manner. Above all, they should avoid the weakness that has taken hold of some people, the desire for death. Just as the mind can drift towards other things without thinking, it can also drift towards death. This happens to both noble and spirited people, as well as the cowardly and despicable. The former despise life, the latter find it unbearable. Some people are also driven by boredom with doing and seeing the same things, not so much by a hatred of life, but because they are tired of it. We slip into this state while philosophy itself pushes us on, and we say, how long must I endure the same things? Shall I continue to wake and sleep, be hungry and full, shiver and sweat? Nothing ever is. Everything is connected in a kind of circle. Things flee and are pursued. Night follows day, day follows night. Summer ends in autumn, winter rushes after autumn, and winter melts into spring. All of nature passes only to return. I do nothing new. I see nothing new. Sooner or later, I will get tired of this too. Many people don't find living painful, but just unnecessary. Farewell. Letter 25. On Reformation. When dealing with these two friends of ours, we have to take different approaches. One friend's faults shouldn't be corrected, while the other's faults need to be completely eliminated. It will be very direct, because I don't truly care for this friend if I'm not willing to hurt his feelings. You might ask, do you plan to keep guiding a man who is already 40 years old? Think about his age. He's already set in his ways and hard to change. It's true that it's difficult to reshape someone like this. Only young minds are easily molded. I'm not sure if I will succeed, but I would rather try and fail than not try at all. You shouldn't give up on curing someone who is sick, even when the illness is serious, as long as you stand firm against their excess and force them to do things they don't want to do. As for our other friend, I'm not entirely confident either, except for the fact that he still feels shame when he sins. This sense of shame should be encouraged, because as long as it lasts, there is hope. But for this older friend of yours, I think we should be more careful so that he doesn't lose hope in himself. There's no better time to approach him than now, when he has some peace and seems like he's trying to correct his faults. Others may have been fooled by this brief period of good behavior, but I am not fooled. I'm certain these faults will come back even stronger because right now, they are just hidden, not gone. I will spend some time on this and try to see if anything can be done. But you, as you've already been doing, need to show me that you are strong-hearted. Lighten your load for the journey ahead. None of our possessions are truly necessary. Let's go back to living by nature's laws, because then we will have true wealth. The things we really need are either free or very cheap. Nature only requires bread and water. No one is poor by this standard. And when a person limits their desires to these needs, they can even rival the happiness of the god Jupiter. As Epicurus says, I must include one or two more of his sayings in this letter. Do everything as if Epicurus were watching you. It's good for a person to have someone to look up to, someone who they think is always watching them, even in their dreams. It's much better to live as though a good person is always by your side. I'm happy if you just act as though someone, anyone, is watching you, because being alone often leads us to regret. And when you've made enough progress that you respect yourself, you can let go of this guardian. But until then, place yourself under the authority of some great man like Cato, Scipio, or Laelius. Someone whose presence would make even the worst people behave. In the meantime, you should work on becoming the kind of person you wouldn't dare misbehave around. Once you've achieved this and start to respect yourself, I will slowly allow you to follow what Epicurus suggests in another passage. The time when you should withdraw into yourself the most is when you are forced to be in a crowd. You should aim to be different from the crowd.
You okay?
So while it's not safe to withdraw into complete solitude, seek out a few good people to be around, because everyone is better off with some company, no matter who, than being alone. The time when you should withdraw into yourself the most is when you are forced to be in a crowd. Yes, but only if you are a good, calm, and self-controlled person. Otherwise, it's better to be in a crowd to escape from yourself. When you're alone, you are too close to the troublemaker within you. Farewell. Letter 26. On old age and death. Not long ago, I told you that I was getting close to old age. Now, I'm afraid I might have already entered into it. Maybe another word better describes my years now, or at least my body, since old age usually means a time of life that is tired but not completely worn out. You could say I'm in the group of those who are worn out and nearing the end. Still, I'm thankful to myself, and you can be my witness, because I feel like age hasn't hurt my mind, even though it has affected my body. Only my bad habits and things that go with them have gotten old. My mind is strong and happy that it doesn't have much connection to my body anymore. It has to let go of most of its burdens. It's alert and even challenges me about old age, saying that this is its time to flourish. So, I'll trust it and let it make the most of the benefits it has. My mind tells me to think about how much of this peace and balanced character I owe to wisdom and how much to my age. It asks me to carefully consider what I can do anymore versus what I don't want to do. Why should anyone complain or see it as a bad thing if abilities that are supposed to fade away have lessened? But you might say it's a big problem to be worn out and fade away, or if I can be literal, to slowly waste away. We aren't suddenly struck down. We gradually lose our abilities day by day. But is there a better way to end life than to smoothly glide into rest when nature decides it's time to let go? Not that there's anything painful about a sudden and unexpected departure from life. It's just that this slow withdrawal is easier. For me, it's like the final test is near, and the day has come to see what all my years have amounted to. So, I watch over myself and reflect on this. All the progress we've made so far, in words or deeds, doesn't really amount to much. It's all just a small and misleading sign of our spirit, wrapped in a lot of pretense. I'll leave it to death to determine how far I've come. So with a brave heart, I get ready for the day when I'll pull aside all pretenses and judge myself honestly. Whether I'm just talking big, or if I really believe what I say. Whether all the bold things I've said against fate are true or just a fact. Forget about public opinion. It always changes and takes both sides. Forget about the studies you've done all your life. Death will deliver the final judgment. Here's what I mean. Your debates and deep discussions, your wise sayings, your thoughtful conversations, all of these don't really prove how strong your soul is. Even the most timid person can give a bold speech. What you've done in the past will only be truly revealed when you take your last breath. I accept these terms. I don't shy away from this judgment. This is what I tell myself, but I hope you understand that I'm also saying it to you. You're younger, but so what? There's no set number of years we're guaranteed to live. You don't know whether death is waiting for you, so be ready for it everywhere. I was about to finish and my hand was ready to write the closing words, but there's still a bit more to say, and I need to give the letter something to take with it. And just to pretend I'm not telling you what I plan to do, but I need to finish this letter. You already know whose wisdom I rely on. Wait a moment, and I'll give you something from my own thoughts. In the meantime, Epicurus will help out with these words. Think about death, or, if you prefer, think about going to heaven. The meaning is clear. It's important to thoroughly learn how to die. You might think it's unnecessary to learn something you'll only do once, but that's exactly why we should think about it. When we can never be sure if we've truly learned something, we must always keep learning it. Think about death. By saying this, he's really telling us to think about freedom. The person who has learned how to die has also learned how to live freely. They are above any external power, or at least beyond its reach. What do prisons, chains, and bars matter to them? They know that they have a way out. Only one thing keeps us tied to life, our love of life. We may not be able to throw this off, but we can wear it down so that when the time comes, nothing will stop us from doing what we must eventually do. Farewell. Letter 27. On the good which abides. You might be thinking, why are you giving me advice? Have you already fixed all your problems? Is that why you have time to help others? No, I'm not so shameless that I try to fix others when I'm still struggling myself. But I'm talking to you about issues we both deal with. I'm sharing the solution with you, just like we're both sick in the same hospital. So listen to me as if I'm talking to myself. I'm letting you edit my deepest thoughts, and I'm really just working things out for myself, using you as my excuse. I keep telling myself, count your years, and you'll be ashamed to still want to chase the same things you did when you were young. Make sure of this thing before you die. Let your thoughts die before you do. Get rid of those wild pleasures that come at a high cost. It's not just the ones in the future that hurt me, but also the ones that have already happened. Just like crimes, even if they aren't caught at the time, still cause anxiety later. Guilty pleasures leave regret even after they're over. They aren't real. They aren't trustworthy. Even if they don't hurt us, they don't last. Instead, look for something good that will last. But there can't be any lasting good unless the soul finds it within itself. Only virtue brings lasting and peaceful joy. Even if something gets in the way, it's like a cloud passing in front of the sun. It never really blocks it. When will you finally reach this kind of joy? You haven't been lazy, but you need to speed up. There's still a lot of work to do, and you have to put in all your time and effort if you want to achieve it. This isn't something you can ask someone else to do for you. Other kinds of work can be done with help from others. For example, there was a rich man named Calvisius Sabinus, who had a lot of money but not much intelligence. I've never seen anyone whose luck was a bigger insult to common sense. His memory was so bad that he would sometimes forget the names of famous people like Ulysses, Achilles, or Priam. Names everyone knows, as well as their own servants' names. No elderly butler who mixes up people's names in his old age ever messed up his master's guest names as badly as Sabinus did with the heroes of Troy and Greece. But still, he wanted to seem smart. So he came up with a shortcut to learning. He bought expensive slaves. One who knew Homer's works by heart, another who knew Hesiod's works, and one for each of the 9 lyric poets. You shouldn't be surprised that he paid a lot for these slaves. If he couldn't find them ready-made, he had them specially trained. After gathering this group, He made life miserable for his guests by asking these slaves to recite verses while he tried to repeat them, often messing up halfway through a word. A man named Satillus Quadratus, who liked to flatter rich fools and mock them at the same time, suggested that Sabinus should hire some scholars to correct his mistakes. Sabinus said that each slave costed 100,000 sesterces, and Satilius replied, "You could have bought as many bookcases for less." But Sabinus believed that whatever his slaves knew, he knew too. This same Satilius advised Sabinus to start taking wrestling lessons, even though Sabinus was sickly, pale, and weak. Sabinus replied, "How can I? I can barely stay alive now." Satilius responded, "Don't say that. Think about how many healthy slaves you have. No one can borrow or buy a sound mind. In fact, even if sound minds were for sale, I doubt anyone would buy them. But twisted minds are bought and sold every day." But let me finish up and say goodbye with this thought. Real wealth is living in harmony with nature, even if that means living in poverty. Epicurus said this in different ways, but it's worth repeating often because it's something we need to keep learning. For some people, the remedy should just be suggested. For others, it should be forced upon them. Farewell. Letter 28. On travel as a cure for discontent. Do you think you're the only one who's felt this way? Or are you surprised that after traveling so far and seeing so many new places, you still can't shake off the sadness and heaviness in your mind? What you need is a change in your soul, not just a change of scenery. Even if you cross vast oceans, like our poet Virgil says, lands and cities are left behind. Your problems will follow you wherever you go. Socrates said something similar to someone who was complaining. Why are you surprised that traveling doesn't help you when you always take yourself with you? The reason you're running away is always right there with you. What's the point of seeing new places or visiting famous cities? All this rushing around is pointless. Do you ever wonder why running away doesn't help? It's because you're running away with yourself. You must put aside the burdens in your mind. Until you do this, no place will make you feel satisfied. Think about how you are acting now. It's like the prophetess that Virgil describes. She is filled with excitement and driven into a frenzy, carrying with her a lot of inspiration that isn't her own. The priestess raves, hoping she can shake the great god from her heart. You move from place to place, trying to get rid of the burden that weighs on you, but it only gets heavier because of your restlessness. Just like in a ship, when the cargo stays in one place, it doesn't cause any trouble, but when it shifts from side to side, it makes the ship tilt more quickly in the direction where the cargo has settled. Everything you do ends up working against you, and you hurt yourself with your own unrest. It's like you are shaking up a sick person. Once you remove that trouble, every change of scenery will become enjoyable, even if you are driven to the farthest ends of the earth. Wherever you find yourself, no matter how wild or harsh, that place will feel welcoming to you. The person you are matters more than the place you go. For this reason, we should not allow our minds to become slaves to any one place. Live with this belief. I am not born for any one corner of the universe. The whole world is my home. If you saw this clearly, you wouldn't be surprised that you don't feel better when you move to new places just because you're tired of the old ones. The first place would have pleased you if you had truly believed it was yours. But as it is, you're not really traveling. You're just drifting and being driven from one place to another. Even though the thing you're looking for, how to live well, can be found anywhere. Can there be any place as full of confusion as the Forum? Yet you can live quietly even there, if you have to. Of course, if I could choose, I would stay far away from even the site or neighborhood of the Forum. Just like unhealthy places can make even a strong person sick, there are some places that aren't good for a healthy mind that is still recovering from its troubles. I disagree with those who throw themselves into the middle of life's struggles, welcoming a stormy life and wrestling every day with life's problems. The wise person can endure all that but wouldn't choose it. They would prefer to be at peace rather than at war. It doesn't help much to get rid of your own faults if you have to constantly fight against the faults of others. Some people say, there were 30 tyrants surrounding Socrates, and yet they couldn't break his spirit. But what does it matter how many masters a person has? Slavery has no plural, and the person who has scorned it is free, no matter how many masters are around them. It's time to stop, but not before I fulfill my duty to share wisdom. The knowledge of sin is the beginning of salvation. This saying of Epicurus seems noble to me. For the person who doesn't know they have sinned doesn't want to be corrected. You must realize you are in the wrong before you can fix yourself. Some people even boast about their faults. Do you think a person who counts their vices as virtues is thinking about changing their ways? So, as much as possible, prove yourself guilty. Bring charges against yourself. Play the roles of accuser, judge, and finally defender. At times, be strict with yourself. Farewell. Letter 29. On the critical condition of Marcellinus. You've been asking about our friend Marcellinus, and you want to know how he's doing. He doesn't visit me often, and that's because he's afraid of hearing the truth. Right now, he's safe from hearing it because you shouldn't talk to someone unless they're willing to listen. That's why people sometimes question whether philosophers like Diogenes or other cynics who gave advice to everyone they met should have done so. For example, what's the point of scolding someone who's deaf or who can't speak because they were born that way or because of illness? Because you might say, why should I hold back my words? They don't cost anything. I don't know if I'll help the person I'm advising, but I know that if I advise many people, I'll help someone. I have to spread my advice wisely. It's impossible to keep trying without succeeding at least once. But this, my dear Lucilius, is exactly what a great person shouldn't do. Their influence becomes weaker. It doesn't have as much impact on the people it could have helped if it hadn't been used so carelessly. A skilled archer shouldn't only hit the target sometimes, they should miss only occasionally. If something works by chance, it's not a skill. Wisdom is a skill, and it should have a clear goal, helping those who will make progress and stepping back from those who seem hopeless, but not giving up too soon. Only when it's clear that someone can't be helped should you try stronger measures. As for our friend, Marcellinus, I haven't given up hope yet. He can still be saved, but we need to help him soon. There's a risk he might drag his helper down with him, because he has a strong character that's already leaning toward bad behavior. But I'll take that risk and boldly show him his faults. He'll do what he usually does. He'll use his wit, which can make people smile even when they're sad. He'll joke first about himself and then about me. He'll make fun of our philosophical systems, accusing philosophers of taking money, having mistresses, and giving in to their desires. He'll point out one philosopher caught in an affair, another who hangs out in cafes, and another who spends time in court. He'll even mention Aristo, the philosopher of Marcus Lepidus, who used to hold discussions in his carriage. Aristo would edit his work while writing, so Scatus joked that Aristo wasn't one of the walking philosophers. Julius Gracinus, a respected man, was asked the same thing and replied, "I can't tell you because I don't know what he does and when he's off his horse," as if Aristo were like a chariot-racing gladiator. These kinds of philosophers who would have been better off leaving philosophy alone than using it to their advantage are the ones Marcellinus will throw in my face. But I've decided to endure the teasing. He may make me laugh, but maybe I'll make him cry. Or if he keeps joking, I'll find some happiness in his foolishness. But that kind of humor doesn't last long. Watch these people, and you'll see that they laugh too much and get angry too much in a short time. My plan is to approach him and show him how much more valuable he was when people thought he was less important. Even if I can't completely get rid of all his faults, I'll slow them down. They might not stop, but they'll take a break, and maybe they'll stop for good if they get used to taking breaks. This isn't something to ignore because for people who are seriously struggling, getting some relief is almost like being healed. While I get ready to help Marcellinus, you, in the meantime, should work on improving yourself, since you know where you've come from and where you're going. And because of that, you understand how far you still have to go. Strengthen your character, build your courage, and stand firm against the things that scare you. Don't worry about how many people threaten you. Did you think it was silly to be afraid of a crowd in a place where only one person can pass at a time? In the same way, there aren't many who can actually kill you, even if many threaten you with death. Nature has arranged it so that just as only one person gave you life, only one person can take it away. If you had any shame, you would have let me off the hook for this final piece of advice, but I won't hold back. I give you what I still owe. I've never wanted to please the crowd because they don't appreciate what I know, and I don't know what they like. You're asking who said this? As if you don't know whose wisdom I'm using, it's Epicurus. But you can hear the same message from any philosophical school, whether it's peripatetic, academic, stoic, or cynic. For who that loves virtue can also please the crowd. You need to use tricks to win their approval, and you must make yourself like them. They won't approve of you if they don't see you as one of them. But what you think of yourself is more important than what others think of you. The favor of unworthy people can only be won by unworthy means. So, what's the benefit of the philosophy we praise so highly and are told to value above all else? It will make you prefer to please yourself rather than the crowd. It will make you weigh people's opinions instead of just counting them. It will help you live without fear of gods or men, and it will help you either overcome difficulties or put an end to them. Otherwise, if I see you being cheered by the crowd, if your appearance is met with applause and praise, the kind of attention that's fit only for actors, if the whole city, even women and children, sing your praises, how can I not feel sorry for you? Because I know what path leads to such popularity. Farewell. Letter 30. On Conquering the Conqueror. I have seen Aufidius Bassus, a nobleman, struggling with his health and getting older. But now age has weighed him down so much that he can't stand up anymore. Old age has come upon him heavily. With its full weight, you know that his body was always weak and lacked energy. For a long time he managed to hold himself together, or rather, he managed to keep himself going. Suddenly he has collapsed. Just like on a ship that springs a leak, you can always patch the first or second hole, but when many holes appear and let water in, the ship can't be saved. In the same way, in an old person's body, there is a limit to how much you can support its weakness. But when it becomes like an old, worn-out building, where every joint starts to fall apart, and while one part is being fixed, another part breaks down, then it's time for a person to think about how they might peacefully exit life. But the mind of our friend Bassus is still active. Philosophy gives us this gift. It makes us happy even when facing death. Strong and brave no matter how weak our body is. Cheerful and steady even when our body fails us. A great captain can still sail a ship even when the sails are torn. If this ship is damaged, he can still fix what's left and keep it on course. This is what our friend Bassus is doing. He looks at his own end with courage and calmness, which you might think is too indifferent if you saw someone looking at another person's death in the same way. This is a big achievement, Lucilius, and it takes a lot of practice to learn how to leave this world calmly when the time comes. Other kinds of death have a bit of hope in them. A disease might end, a fire might be put out, falling houses might safely let go of those they seem sure to crush. The sea might push ashore people it pulled under, using the same force that dragged them down. A soldier might pull his sword back from the neck of his enemy at the last moment. But those whom old age is leading toward death have nothing to hope for. Old age is the one thing that gives no second chances. No end is more painless, but none takes longer. Our friend Bassus seemed to me to be attending his own funeral, laying out his own body for his burial, and living almost as if he had already survived his own death, bearing with wise acceptance the sorrow of his own passing. For he talks openly about death, trying hard to convince us that if this process has any discomfort or fear, it's the fault of the person dying, not the death itself. He also says that there is no more discomfort at the moment of death than there is after it's over. And it's just as foolish, he adds, for a person to fear what won't happen to them as it is to fear what they won't feel if it does. Or does anyone think it's possible that the thing that removes feeling can itself be felt? Therefore, says Bassus, death is so far beyond all evil that it's beyond the fear of all evils. I know that all this has been said many times and should be said many more times, but when I read these ideas, they didn't affect me as much. Nor did they when I heard them from people who are far from the fear of things they said shouldn't be feared. But this old man had a huge impact on me when he talked about death, and it was close. For I have to tell you what I think. I believe that a person is braver at the moment of death than when they are approaching death. For death, when it's near, gives even inexperienced people the courage to face what can't be avoided. Just like a gladiator who might have been scared throughout the fight but still offers his throat to his opponent and directs the blade to the right spot. But an end that is near and certain calls for a strong courage of soul. This is a rarer thing, and only the wise can show it. So I listened to Bassus with deep pleasure. He was sharing his thoughts on death and showing what it's like when observed up close. I suppose you wouldn't trust someone more and believe them if they had come back to life and said from experience that there is no evil in death. And so when it comes to the approach of death, those who can tell you best about the fears it brings are the ones who have stood close to it, seen it coming, and welcomed it. Bassus is one of those people. He had no wish to deceive us. He says it's as foolish to fear death as it is to fear old age, because death follows old age just like old age follows youth. If someone doesn't want to die, they can't have really wanted to live. Life is given to us with the condition that we will die. This is where our path leads. So how foolish it is to fear it. Since people who only wait for what is certain, but fear only what is uncertain. Death has a fixed rule, fair and unavoidable. Who can complain when we are governed by rules that apply to everyone? The main part of fairness, though, is equality. But it's not necessary to argue in favor of nature right now, because she wants our laws to match her own. She only breaks down what she has put together and puts back together what she has broken down. Also, if any person is lucky enough to be gently led away by old age, not suddenly taken from life, but slowly removed, they should thank the gods, because after they've had their fill, they are moved to a rest that is meant for everyone, a rest that is welcome to those who are tired. You might see some people who crave death more eagerly than others beg for life, and I'm not sure which people give us more courage, the ones who call for death, or the ones who face it cheerfully and calmly. For the first attitude might be driven by madness or sudden anger, while the second comes from a calm, thoughtful decision. Before now, some people have gone to meet death in a rage, but when death comes to meet them, no one welcomes it cheerfully except the person who has long since prepared themselves for it.
It's hard to catch a bat.
I admit that I visited this dear friend of mine more often, using different excuses, but really to see if he was always the same, as if his mental strength was perhaps weakening along with his body. But it was actually growing stronger, just like a charioteer's joy becomes clearer when he is on the 7th lap of the race and getting closer to the prize. Indeed, he often said, agreeing with the teachings of Epicurus, I hope, first of all, that there is no pain at the moment a person takes their last breath, but if there is, one can find comfort in how short it will be. For no great pain lasts long, and at the very least, a person will find relief at the moment when the soul and body are being separated, even if it's very painful, in the thought that once this pain is over, they can't feel any more pain. I'm sure, though, that an old person's soul is right on the edge, and that it only takes a little push to separate it from the body. A fire that has caught hold of something that keeps it burning needs water to put it out, or sometimes the destruction of the building itself. But a fire that has more fuel to burn dies out on its own. I'm glad to hear such words, my dear Lucilius. Not because they are new to me, but because they bring me face to face with reality. And what then? Haven't I seen many people die? I have indeed seen such people, but those who have the most impact on me are the ones who approach death without any hatred for life, letting death in, so to speak, and not rushing toward it. Bassus kept saying, it's our own fault that we feel this pain, because we only fear dying when we think our end is near. But who isn't near death? It's always ready for us, everywhere and at all times. Let's think, he continued. When some form of death seems close, how much closer are the other forms of death that we don't fear? A person is threatened with death by an enemy, but this type of death could be preceded by an upset stomach. And if we're willing to look closely at the things we fear, we'll find that some are real, and others just seem to be. We don't fear death, we fear the thought of death, for death itself is always the same distance from us. So, if it's to be feared at all, it should be feared all the time. For what part of our life is free from death? But what I should really worry about is that you might hate this long letter more than death itself, so I'll stop here. However, you should always think about death, so that you'll never fear it. Farewell. Letter 31, on Siren Songs. Now I can see the real you, Lucilius. You're starting to show the character you've always had inside. Keep following the urge that led you to aim for the best things, ignoring what the crowd approves of. I don't want you to become greater or better than you planned because your foundation is already strong and wide. Just finish what you started and work on the plans you have in mind. In short, you'll become wise if you close your ears to distractions. But it's not enough to block them with wax. You need something thicker than what Ulysses used for his friends. The song he feared was tempting, but came from only one direction. The song you must fear comes from all around the world. So don't just sail past one place you're wary of because of its false pleasures, but past every city. Ignore even those who love you most, because they often wish bad things for you with good intentions. And if you want to be happy, ask the gods that none of their well-meaning wishes for you come true. What they want for you isn't really good. There's only one true good, the foundation of a happy life. Trust in yourself. But you can't have this unless you learn to dismiss hard work and see it as neither good nor bad. Because something can't be bad at one time and good at another. Sometimes easy and sometimes something to fear. Work is not a good thing. Then what is good? I say it's looking down on work. That's why I should criticize people who work for no purpose. But when a person is striving for honorable things, the more they work and the less they let themselves be beaten or slow down, the more I'll praise them and cheer them on, saying, "You're getting better." Keep going, take a deep breath, and try to climb that hill in one go. Work is what feeds noble minds. So, there's no reason for you to pick and choose what kind of luck you want or what you should pray for just because your parents made an old vow. Besides, it's shameful for a person who's already reached the highest honors to still be begging the gods. Why make vows? Make yourself happy through your own efforts. You can do this if you understand that anything connected with virtue is good and anything connected with vice is bad. Just like nothing shines without light, nothing is black unless it has darkness, and nothing is hot without fire, and nothing is cold without air. In the same way, it's the connection with virtue or vice that makes things honorable or disgraceful. So what is good? The knowledge of things. What is evil? The lack of knowledge of things. A wise person who is also skilled will choose or reject things based on the situation. But they won't fear what they reject, nor will they admire what they choose, as long as they have a strong and unbreakable spirit. I tell you not to be discouraged or sad. It's not enough to just not avoid work. You should ask for it. But you might say, isn't pointless work or work done for the wrong reasons a bad thing? No. It's not any worse than work done for noble goals, because the very spirit that endures hard work and pushes itself to overcome challenges is the one that says, "Why are you getting lazy? It's not manly to be afraid of sweating." Besides, for virtue to be complete, There needs to be a balanced and consistent way of life. This can't happen without knowledge of things and the skill to understand human and divine matters. That's the greatest good. If you grasp this, you begin to be like the gods, not just someone who asks for help. But how, you ask, does someone reach that goal? You don't need to cross the Pennine or Grayan Mountains or travel through the Candavian wilderness, or face the Syrtes or Scylla or Charybdis, even though you've traveled through all these places for a small government job. The journey nature has prepared for you is safe and pleasant. She has given you gifts that, if you don't betray them, will help you rise to the level of God. But your money won't make you equal to God, because God owns nothing. Your fancy clothes won't do it either, because God doesn't wear clothes. Neither will your reputation, your public image, or the fact that people all over the world know your name, because no one really knows God. Many people even disrespect him and don't suffer for it. The crowd of slaves carrying your litter through city streets and foreign places won't help you either, because this God I'm talking about, who is the highest and most powerful being, carries everything on his own shoulders. Neither beauty nor strength can make you blessed, because none of these can resist old age. So what should we seek? That which doesn't get more and more controlled by something stronger every day. And what is this? It's the soul, but the soul that is upright, good, and great. What else could you call such a soul but a god living as a guest in a human body? A soul like this can be found in a Roman knight, a freedman's son, or even a slave. Because what is a Roman knight, a freedman's son, or a slave? They are just titles, created by ambition or injustice. You can reach heaven even from the slums. Just rise and shape yourself to be like your god. This shaping won't be done in gold or silver. An image that's to be like God can't be made of such materials. Remember that when the gods were kind to humans, they were molded out of clay. Farewell. Letter 32. On progress. I've been asking about you and talking to everyone who comes from your area, asking what you're doing and where you're spending your time and who you're with. You can't fool me because I'm with you in spirit. Live as if I'm sure to hear news of your actions, or even as if I'm there to see them. And if you're wondering what news about you makes me happiest, it's that I hear nothing at all. That most of the people I ask don't know what you're up to. This is a good habit, to stay away from people who have different values and goals than you. I'm sure that you can't be easily influenced, that you'll stick to your path even if the crowd around you tries to distract you. So what's on my mind? I'm not worried that they'll change you, but I do worry that they might slow down your progress. Even someone who just holds you back can do a lot of harm, especially since life is so short. And we make it even shorter by being inconsistent, by starting our lives over and over again. Now doing one thing and then immediately switching to another. We break life into small pieces and waste it away. So hurry forward, my dear Lucilius, and think about how much faster you'd move if you knew an enemy was right behind you, or if you thought the cavalry was coming up fast, pressing hard as you fled. It's true, the enemy is indeed close behind you. You should therefore quicken your pace, escape to a safe place, and keep in mind how noble it is to complete your life's work before death arrives, and then wait in peace for the rest of your time, asking for nothing more since you already have a happy life. A life like this isn't made any better by being longer. Oh, when will you see the day when you realize that time doesn't matter to you? When you'll be calm and peaceful, not worried about tomorrow because you're fully enjoying your life today. Do you know what makes people greedy for the future? It's because no one has really found themselves yet. Your parents, of course, wished for other blessings for you, but I pray that you may come to despise all those things your parents wanted for you in abundance. Their prayers take away from others just to give to you. Whatever they give you has to be taken from someone else. I pray that you gain such control over yourself that your mind, which is now unsettled by wandering thoughts, may finally find peace and become steady, that it may be content with itself, and that having understood what things are truly good, and they are in our possession as soon as we notice that it may not need extra years. A person has finally moved beyond all necessities, has earned an honorable discharge, and is truly free when they keep on living even after their life's work is done. Farewell. Letter 33. On the futility of learning maxims. You want me to end these letters with some quotes from the leaders of our philosophy, just like I did with my previous letters, but they didn't focus on clever sayings. Their whole work is full of strength. You see, it's uneven when some things stand out more than others. A single tree isn't special if the whole forest is the same height. Poetry and history are full of these kinds of sayings. That's why I don't want you to think these things belong only to Epicurus. They are common to all of us, and they're especially ours. However, they stand out more in Epicurus's work because they appear rarely and unexpectedly, and because it's surprising to hear brave words from a man who was known for being soft. That's what most people think, but in my opinion, Epicurus was actually a brave man. Even though he wore long sleeves, strength, energy, and readiness for battle can be found among the Persians, just as much as among people who wear their clothes high. So, you don't need to ask me for quotes and sayings. The thoughts that other philosophers sprinkle here and there throughout their work run all through ours. That's why we don't have any display goods, and we don't trick people into thinking there's nothing else behind what's in the window. We let customers take samples from anywhere they want. If we were to pick out each saying from the general stock, who would we credit them to? Zeno, Clynthes, Chrysippus, Panaetius, or Posidonius? We Stoics aren't ruled by a single leader. Each of us claims our own freedom. But in other schools of thought, whatever Harmachus or Metrodorus says is credited to one source. In that group, everything anyone says is spoken under the leadership and authority of one person. But in our philosophy, no matter how hard we try, we can't pick out anything from such a large collection of equally good ideas. Only a poor man counts his flock. Wherever you look, you'll find something that might stand out if it weren't surrounded by equally notable contexts. So stop thinking that you can understand the wisdom of great people just by skimming through summaries. Look at their wisdom as a whole, study it as a whole. They're working on a plan, weaving it together line by line, a masterpiece from which nothing can be removed without damaging the whole. You can examine the separate parts if you want, but only as parts of the whole person. A woman isn't considered beautiful because of her ankle or arm, but because her overall appearance makes you forget to admire just one part of her. However, if you insist, I won't be stingy with you, but generous. There are plenty of these sayings. They're scattered everywhere, not needing to be gathered, just picked up. They don't just drip out occasionally, they flow continuously. They are unbroken and closely connected. They might be helpful to those who are still beginners and learning from the outside because single sayings are easier to understand when they're short and separate, like a line of poetry. That's why we give children proverbs or short sayings, like the Greeks call kriya. To memorize this type of thing is easier for a young mind to grasp, which can't yet hold onto more. But for someone who has made real progress, to chase after select sayings and rely on well-known and brief quotes to support their weakness and depend on their memory is disgraceful. It's time for that person to rely on themselves. They should create such sayings, not memorize them. It's shameful for an old person or someone approaching old age to only have knowledge that comes from a notebook. This is what Zeno said. But what have you said? This is Clynthes' opinion. But what is your own opinion? How long will you march under someone else's orders? Take command and say something that people will remember in the future. Bring out something from your own store. That's why I believe there's nothing great in people who never create anything themselves, but always stay in the shadow of others, playing the role of interpreters, never daring to put into practice what they've spent so long learning. They train their memories on other people's material, but remembering is one thing, knowing is another. Remembering is just holding on to something stored in memory. Knowing means making everything your own. It means not depending on the copy and not always looking back at the teacher. This is what Zeno said, and this is what Cleanthes said, indeed. Let there be a difference between you and your book. How long will you be a student? From now on, be a teacher too. But why, someone might ask, should I keep listening to lectures on what I can read? The spoken word, someone else replies, is a great help. Maybe, but not a voice that only repeats someone else's words and just serves as a reporter. Think about this too. Those who have never gained their own mental independence start by following the leader, even when everyone else has left him. Then they follow him even in matters where the truth is still being figured out. But the truth will never be discovered if we're satisfied with what's already been found. Besides, someone who only follows another discovers nothing and isn't even searching. So what then? Should I not follow in the footsteps of those who came before me? I will indeed use the old road, but if I find a shorter and smoother path, I'll open a new road. The people who made these discoveries before us aren't our masters, but our guides. Truth is open to everyone. It hasn't completely.
Me and my guildies
and
are working on something here
for future generations to discover.
That's why it's
farewell. Letter
that's
34.
what I'm doing.
On a promising pupil.
Love you.
I feel my spirit lift,
They get me
and
Verigan's
I am filled with
fist.
joy shaking off my ears, and my blood feels warm again whenever I see from your actions and your letters how much you've surpassed yourself. As for the ordinary man, you left him behind long ago. If a farmer is pleased when his tree grows strong and bears fruit, if a shepherd takes joy in the increase of his flock, if every teacher feels pride when they see their students showing signs of growth, then imagine how those who have shaped a mind and nurtured a young idea must feel when they see it suddenly mature. I consider you my own. You are my creation. When I saw your potential, I took you under my wing. I encouraged you, pushed you forward, and didn't let you slow down, but kept urging you on. And now, I continue to do the same. But at this point, I'm cheering on someone who is already in the race, and in turn, cheers me on. What more do you want from me, you ask? I still have the will to continue. Well, in this case, having the will is almost everything, and not just half, as the saying goes. A task once begun is half done. It's more than half because the matter we're talking about is determined by the soul. That's why the greater part of becoming good is the desire to be good. Do you know what I mean by a good person? It's someone who is complete and fully developed, someone who no pressure or need can make bad. I see that kind of person in you. As long as you keep moving forward, commit to your task, and make sure that all your actions and words align and match each other, and are shaped by the same principles. If a person's actions don't match, it means their soul is crooked. Farewell. Letter 35. On the friendship of kindred minds. When I urge you so strongly to continue your studies, it's actually in my own interests. I want your friendship, and I can't truly have it unless you keep working on improving yourself as you've started. Right now, even though you love me, you're not really my friend. But you might ask, aren't love and friendship the same? No, they are quite different in meaning. A friend does love you, of course, but someone who loves you is not always your friend. Friendship is always beneficial, but love can sometimes even cause harm. So try to protect yourself, if for no other reason, to learn how to love properly. Hurry in your self-improvement so that while you're perfecting yourself for my benefit, you don't end up doing it for someone else instead. I'm already feeling some benefit by imagining that we will be of one mind, and that whatever strength I've lost with age will return to me through your strength. Even though there isn't a big difference in our ages, but still, I want to actually see this happen and rejoice in it. We feel joy for those we love, and when we're apart from them, that kind of joy is light and doesn't last long. Seeing someone, being with them, and interacting with them gives a deeper pleasure. This is especially true if we not only see the person we desire, but see them become the person we want them to be. So give yourself to me as a valuable gift. And to motivate yourself, remember that you are mortal and I am getting old. Hurry to find me, but first hurry to find yourself. Make progress, and above all, try to be consistent with yourself. When you want to know if you've accomplished anything, think about whether you desire the same things today that you desired yesterday. And change in your desires shows that your mind is unsettled, moving in different directions like a ship at sea, swayed by the wind. But what is steady and solid doesn't move from its place. This is the fortunate state of the completely wise person, and also, to some extent, of the person who is progressing and making some headway. Now, what is the difference between these two types of people? The one is in motion but doesn't change position. They simply move up and down in the same place, while the other doesn't move at all. Farewell. Letter 36, on the value of retirement. Encourage your friend to bravely ignore those who criticize him for choosing a quieter life and stepping away from a career of honors. Even though he could have achieved more, he has chosen peace over all that. Let him show these critics every day how wisely he has taken care of his own well-being. Those who are envied by others will continue to move forward. Some will be pushed aside, and others will fall. Success can be a wild and restless thing. It troubles the mind in many ways, pushing people toward different goals. Some toward power, others toward a life of luxury. Some people get puffed up by it, while others become lazy and weak. But someone might say, so-and-so handles his success well. Yes, just like someone who handles their liquor well. So don't let this kind of person convince you that someone surrounded by crowds is happy. People rush to them like crowds rush to a pool of water, making it muddy while they drink from it. But you say, people call our friend a fool and a lazy person. There are people, you know, who use the wrong words for things. They call him happy. So what? Was he really happy? Even the fact that some people think he is rough and gloomy doesn't bother me. Aristo used to say that he preferred a young person with a serious nature to one who was just a fun and agreeable person for the crowd. Because, he said, wine that tastes harsh and sour when it's new becomes good wine with time. But wine that tastes good right from the start doesn't age well. So let them call him stern and uninterested in his own success. It's the seriousness that will serve him well as he grows older, as long as he keeps valuing virtue and deeply absorbing the studies that lead to true wisdom. Not just sprinkling a little knowledge on himself, but soaking his mind into it. Now it's the time to learn. What? Is there ever a time when a person shouldn't learn? Of course not. But just as it's good for every age to study, it's not good for every age to be starting from scratch. An old man learning his ABCs is a sad and silly sight. The young man should gather knowledge, and the old man should use it. So, you'll be doing something very helpful for yourself if you make this friend of yours as good a person as possible. They say that the best acts of kindness are the ones that benefit both the giver and the receiver, and this is undoubtedly true. Finally, he no longer has a choice in the matter. He has given his word. And it's less shameful to settle a debt with a creditor than to settle for less than your potential. To pay off a money debt, a business person needs a successful journey, and a farmer needs good crops and favorable weather. But the debt your friend owes can be paid off with nothing more than goodwill. Fortune has no control over a person's character. Let him shape his character so that in perfect peace he can fully develop the spirit within him. A spirit that neither loss nor gain can change, but that remains steady no matter what happens. A spirit like this, if it's surrounded by wealth, rises above it, and if, on the other hand, chance takes away part of his wealth, or even all of it, his spirit remains strong. If your friend had been born in Parthia, he would have started learning to use a bow as a child. If in Germany, he would have been brandishing a slender spear. If he had been born in the days of our ancestors, he would have learned to ride a horse and fight his enemy in hand-to-hand combat. These are the activities that each culture encourages its people to pursue. Yes, he even demands of them. So what should your friend focus on? I say, let him learn something that's useful against all kinds of weapons and enemies. Contempt for death. No one doubts that death has something terrifying in it. Something that shocks even our souls, which are naturally inclined to love life. Otherwise, there would be no need to prepare ourselves or to strengthen our courage to face something we should approach willingly, just as all people naturally strive to preserve their lives. No one learns something just so they can lie down calmly on a bed of roses, if the need arises. Instead, they toughen up so they won't betray their commitment, even if they have to endure torture, and so they can hold their ground in the trenches, even if they are wounded without leaning on the spear. Because leaning on anything might make them fall asleep, which is dangerous in battle. There is nothing harmful in death because there has to be something for it to harm. Yet, if you have a strong desire for a longer life, remember that nothing truly vanishes when it disappears from our sight. Everything that fades away is absorbed back into the world it came from, only to return again. Death, which we fear and shy away from, merely interrupts life. It doesn't take it away. The time will come when we will return to the light of day, and many people would object to this, even if they weren't brought back with the memories of the past. But I will explain this to you in more detail later, that everything that seems to disappear is only changing form. Since you're destined to return, you should leave with calm mind. Notice how the universe repeats its cycle. You'll see that no star in the sky is ever truly extinguished. They all set and rise in turn. Summer is gone, but another year it will bring back. Winter has laid low, but it will return in its proper months. Night has overtaken the sun, but day will soon push the night away again. The wandering stars retrace their paths. Part of the sky is always rising, and part is always sinking. One last thing, and then I'll stop. Infants, young children, and people who have lost their minds have no fear of death, and it's a shame if reason can't give us the peace of mind that their lack of understanding does. Farewell. Letter 37. On allegiance to virtue. You have promised to be a good person. You have committed to this under oath, and that is the strongest bond that will keep you on the path to wisdom. Anyone would be wrong to tell you that this is an easy and gentle kind of commitment. I don't want you to be misled. The words of this honorable promise are the same as those in the most difficult promises, which say, through fire, imprisonment, or death by the sword. For those who sell their strength for the arena, who eat and drink at the cost of their blood, there is a guarantee that they will face such trials, even if they do so willingly. But for you, the guarantee is that you will face them willingly and eagerly. The gladiator may lower his weapon and try to get mercy from the crowd, but you must not lower your weapon or beg for life. You must face death standing tall and unyielding. Besides, what good is it to gain a few extra days or years? From the moment we are born, there is no way out. So how can I free myself, you ask? You can't escape the necessities of life, but you can overcome them. A way is made by force, and this way will be shown to you by philosophy. Turn to philosophy if you want to be safe, calm, happy, and most importantly, if you want to be truly free. There is no other way to achieve this. Foolishness is low, miserable, weak, and controlled by many of the most painful emotions. These emotions, which are harsh rulers, sometimes taking turns and sometimes working together, can be driven away by wisdom, which is the only true freedom. There is only one path leading to this freedom, and it is a straight path. You will not get lost. Walk steadily on this path, and if you want to have control over everything, put yourself under the control of freedom, and it is a straight path. You will not get lost. Walk steadily on this path, and if you want to have control over everything, put yourself under the control of reason. If reason becomes your guide, you will become the master of many things. You will learn from reason what you should do and how to do it. You won't stumble into things by accident. You can't show me anyone who knows how they started wanting the things they want. They didn't get there through careful thought. They were driven there by impulse. Fortune attacks us as often as we try to seize fortune. It is shameful to be swept along by events instead of moving forward with purpose, and then, in the middle of all the chaos, to suddenly ask in confusion, how did I end up in this situation? Farewell. Letter 38, on quiet conversation. You are right when you say that we should write to each other more often, but the greatest benefit comes from talking face to face, because conversation slowly seeps into the soul. Lectures that are prepared in advance and delivered to a large audience may have more noise, but they lack the personal touch. Philosophy is like giving good advice, and no one can give advice by shouting. Of course, sometimes we need to use speeches like these, if I can call them that, when someone who is uncertain needs a push. But when the goal is to make someone truly learn, not just to make them want to learn, we need to use the quiet, calm words of conversation. These words enter the mind more easily and stick in the memory. We don't need many words, but rather effective ones. Words should be scattered like seeds, no matter how small they seem to be. If it lands on fertile ground, it will grow strong, spreading from something small to something great. Reason works in the same way. It might not look like much at first, but it grows as it is used. Few words are spoken, but if the mind truly grasps them, they will gain strength and take root. Yes, advice and seeds have the same quality. They produce a lot, even though they are small. But as I said, the mind must be ready and willing to take them in and make them its own. Then, the mind itself will produce even more in return, giving back more than it received. Farewell. Letter 39, on noble aspirations. I will definitely organize and simplify the notes you asked for, but think about whether you might learn more from the usual method than from what people now call a breviary, which in the old days, when the real Latin was spoken, was called a summary. The usual method is more useful for someone who is still learning a subject, while the summary is better for someone who already knows it and just needs a reminder. But I'll make sure you have plenty of opportunities for both. Someone like you shouldn't need to ask me for proof or references. A person who has to rely on someone else's authority means they are not well known themselves. So, I will write exactly what you want, but I'll do it in my own way. In the meantime, you have many other authors whose works will help you keep your thoughts organized. Just looking at the list of philosophers will make you want to wake up and get to work. When you see how many people have been working to benefit you, you will feel eager to become one of them yourself. This is one of the best qualities of a noble soul. It can be inspired to do great things. No person with high abilities is satisfied with low and trivial things. The vision of great achievements calls them and lifts them up. Just as a flame rises straight into the air and cannot be contained or kept down, our soul is always in motion, and the more passionate it is, the greater its energy and activity. But lucky is the person who has given the soul this drive toward better things. They will rise above the control of fate. They will wisely manage success. They will lessen adversity, and they will look down on what others admire. It is the mark of a great soul to look down on great things and to prefer what is simpler rather than what is too grand. The simple things are useful and life-giving, but the grand things can be harmful because they are excessive. In the same way, soil that is too rich makes crops fall over, branches break under too heavy a load, and too much productivity prevents fruit from ripening properly. The same thing happens to the soul. It is ruined by uncontrolled success, which harms not only others but itself. What enemy has ever been as insulting
Playing
to
with
an
this fellow
opponent
from
as passions
Idaho,
are
dear.
to certain people? The only excuse we can
Helping
give
me
for
get
the lack of
Verigan's
self-control
fist.
and wise vile desires of these people is
is
that
a
they suffer
hammer.
from the same evils they inflict on others. And they are rightly tormented by this madness, because desire needs endless room to roam if it goes beyond what is natural. Nature has limits, but reckless actions and the desires that come from willful lust have no boundaries. Practical needs are measured by what is useful, but how can you measure what is unnecessary? That's why people get lost in pleasures, and once they are used to them, they can't live without them. This is why they are so miserable, because they have reached a point where what was once extra has now become essential. So they become slaves to their pleasures instead of enjoying them. They even love their own problems, and that's the worst problem of all. The height of unhappiness is reached when people are not only drawn to, but even find joy in shameful things. And when there is no longer any chance of a cure, because what was once a vice has now become a habit. Farewell.
Corium is harmless enough, but once it's wet, it could blow iron.
Letter 40. On the proper style for a philosopher's discourse. I'm grateful that you write to me so often, because it's the only way you can really show me who you are. It's like you're right here with me. If we find comfort in pictures of our absent friends, even though they only help us remember and ease our longing a little, how much more comforting is a letter which brings us real traces and real evidence of a friend who is far away. The sweetest part of meeting in person is found in the recognition we feel when we see the familiar handwriting of a friend in a letter. You wrote to me that you heard a lecture by the philosopher Serapio when he arrived at the place where you're staying. You said he tends to speak very quickly, and he doesn't let his words come out one by one, but instead they rush and collide with each other. The words come out so fast that one voice can hardly keep up. I don't approve of this in a philosopher. His speech, like his life, should be calm and composed, and nothing that rushes and hurries can be well organized. That's why, in Homer's writings, the fast-paced style, which flows like heavy snowfall, is given to the younger speaker, while the older man speaks more gently, with words that are sweeter than honey. So take note of what I'm saying, that forceful and rapid way of speaking is better suited to a showman than to someone who is discussing and teaching important and serious subjects. But I also don't think it's good for someone to speak too slowly and drag out their words, because that can make the audience lose interest. Even though the word that is waited for long can stick in the mind better than one that flies past quickly, speech that is too slow can make listeners tired and less attentive. Finally, people talk about handing down teachings to their students, but you can't hand down something that slips away before it can be grasped. Besides, speech that deals with the truth should be plain and simple. The flashy style that tries to impress the crowd and captivate unthinking listeners with its speed doesn't belong in philosophy. It doesn't invite discussion, but instead tries to avoid it. How can that kind of speech lead others if it can't even control itself? May I also point out that speech meant to heal our minds should sink in deeply? Just like medicine won't work unless it stays in the body, words won't help us unless they stay with us. Also, this type of speech is often full of emptiness. It has more noise than substance. My fears should be calmed, my anger soothed, my false beliefs shaken off, my indulgences checked, and my greed corrected. And which of these things can be done in a hurry? What doctor can heal a patient with a quick visit? Let me add that this kind of confusing and poorly chosen speech doesn't even bring pleasure. No, just like you might be satisfied to see through a magic trick you thought was impossible. Hearing these fast-talking performers once is more than enough. What could anyone want to learn or imitate from them? What can you think of their minds when their speech is so chaotic and out of control? Just like when you run downhill and can't stop at the place you planned because your momentum carries you further, this kind of fast speech has no control over itself. And it's not suitable for philosophy. Philosophy should carefully place its words, not throw them out recklessly, and should proceed step by step. What then, you might ask? Shouldn't philosophy sometimes speak with more passion? Of course, but it should still maintain dignity, which is lost when speech becomes too violent and forceful. Philosophy should have great power, but keep it under control. Let its ideas flow steadily, but not like a rushing torrent. I wouldn't even recommend this rapid style to an orator who needs to be understood by judges who might be inexperienced and untrained. Even when an orator is carried away by emotion or the desire to show off, they still shouldn't speak faster than their audience can follow. So, you'll be doing the right thing if you don't admire those who focus more on how much they say rather than how they say it. And if you had to choose, it would be better to speak slowly like Publius Vinicius, who was known for his slow speech. When someone asked Acilius how Vinicius spoke, he replied gradually. By the way, I don't see how you can call that man eloquent. He can't even get out 3 words together. So why not choose to speak as Vinicius did? Though of course you might encounter someone like the person who jokingly asked Vinicius as he dragged out his words as if he were dictating, say, "Don't you have anything to say?" Yet that would still be a quieter choice because the rapid speech of Quintus Haetorius, the most famous orator of his time, is something I think a sensible person should avoid. Haetorius never hesitated, never paused. He started speaking once and didn't stop until he was finished. However, I suppose that certain styles of speech suit different cultures. With the Greek, you can tolerate a more unrestrained style, but we Romans, even when writing, have learned to separate our words carefully. And our fellow Roman, Cicero, who brought Roman oratory to prominence, was also known for his measured pace. The Roman language is more inclined to be thoughtful, to weigh its words, and to offer something worth considering. Fabianus, a man known for his virtuous life, his knowledge, and, less importantly, his eloquence, used to discuss topics with quickness but not haste. You might call it ease rather than speed. I approve of this quality in a wise person, but I don't demand it. I only ask that their speech flows freely, though I prefer that it be delivered thoughtfully rather than hastily. However, I have one more reason to warn you against this fast-paced style of speech. You can only succeed in it by losing your sense of modesty. You would have to get rid of all the shame and refuse to hear yourself speak. That reckless flow of words will carry with it many things you might later wish to criticize. And as I said, you can't master this style without losing your sense of shame. Moreover, you would need to practice it every day, shifting your focus from the content of your speech to the words themselves. But even if the words come to you easily and flow without effort, they would still need to be controlled. Just as a philosopher should have a modest way of walking, so should their speech be restrained and far from boldness. So the main point of my advice is this. I urge you to speak slowly. Farewell. Letter 41. On the God within us. You are doing something excellent, something that will be very good for you, if, as you say in your letter, you are continuing your efforts to gain a sound understanding. It is foolish to pray for this when you can achieve it yourself. We don't need to raise our hands toward heaven or beg the keeper of a temple to let us get close to an idol's ear, as if our prayers would be more likely to be heard that way. God is near you, He is with you, He is within you. This is what I mean, Lucilius. There is a Holy Spirit within us, one that observes our good and bad deeds and acts as our guardian. As we treat this spirit, so are we treated by it. Indeed, no one
Isn't
can
it interesting how much of Catholicism is influenced by Roman Stoicism? It really is kind of the roots of it.
And upright counsel. In every good person a God dwells, but we do not know which God. If you ever come across a grove filled with ancient trees that have grown to an unusual height, blocking out the sky with a thick canopy of intertwined branches, then the majesty of the forest, the seclusion of the spot, and your amazement at the deep, unbroken shade in the midst of open spaces will make you feel the presence of a divine power. Or if you find a cave created by the deep crumbling of rocks holding up a mountain on its arch, a place not built by humans' hands but formed into a spacious cavern by natural forces, your soul will be deeply moved by a certain sense of the existence of God. We worship the sources of mighty rivers. We build altars at places where great streams suddenly burst from hidden springs. We revere hot springs as divine, and we consecrate certain pools because of their dark waters or their immeasurable depth. If you see a person who is unafraid in the face of danger, untouched by desires, happy even in the adversity, calm amid the storm, who looks down on others from a higher plane, and views the gods as equals, won't you feel a sense of reverence for him? Won't you say this quality is too great and too lofty to be just a part of this small human body where it lives? A divine power has entered that person. When a soul rises above other souls, when it is controlled and calm, when it passes through every experience as if it were of little importance, when it smiles at our fears and our prayers, it is driven by a force from heaven. Something like this cannot stand tall unless it is supported by the divine. Therefore, a greater part of it stays in the place where it came from down to earth. Just as the rays of the sun touch the earth but still remain at the source, so too does the great and hallowed soul, which has come down to earth so that we may have a closer knowledge of humanity, associate with us but still stay connected to its origin. It depends on that source, turns its gaze toward it, strives to return to it, and only concerns itself with our doings as something higher than ourselves. So, what is such a soul? It is one that shines within its own inner goodness, not with anything external. For what could be more foolish than to praise a person for qualities that come from outside? And what can be more ridiculous than to admire things that could at any moment belong to someone else? A golden bit doesn't make a better horse. The lion with a gilded mane, trained and worn out to endure the decoration, is sent into the arena very differently from the wild lion, whose spirit remains untamed. The wild lion, bold in its attack as nature intended, impressive because of its wild appearance, and it is his glory that no one can look upon him without fear, is preferred over the lion who is merely a tired, gilded creature. No one should take pride in anything except what truly belongs to them. We praise a vine if it produces many shoots and bends the poles with its heavy fruit. Would anyone prefer a vine with golden grapes and leaves hanging down? The virtue of a vine is its fertility. In a person, we should praise what is truly theirs. Suppose someone has a retinue of handsome slaves, a beautiful house, a large farm, and a big income. None of these things are truly part of that person. They are all external. Praise the quality in them that cannot be given or taken away, the quality that is uniquely theirs. Do you know what this is? It is the soul, and reason perfected in the soul. For a person is a reasoning creature. Therefore, a person's highest good is achieved when they fulfill the purpose for which nature designed them at birth. And what does this reason demand of them? The easiest thing in the world, to live in accordance with their own nature. This has become a hard task because of the general madness of humanity. We push each other into vice, and how can a person be saved when no one is holding them back, and everyone is urging them on? Farewell. Letter 42, on values. Has that friend of yours already convinced you that he is a good person? Yet it's impossible for someone to become truly good or to be recognized as good in such a short time. Do you know what kind of a person I mean when I talk about a good person? I'm talking about someone of the second rank, like your friend. Someone of the highest rank, like a true sage, perhaps only comes to existence once in 500 years, like the mythical phoenix. It's not surprising that true greatness only develops at long intervals. Fortune often creates average people who are meant to please the crowd, but she makes extraordinary people rare, so that they stand out even more. However, the person you spoke of is still far from the level he claims to have reached. And if he really knew what it meant to be a good person, he wouldn't believe he was one yet. He might even doubt whether he could ever become truly good. But, you say, he thinks poorly of bad people. Well, so do bad people themselves, and there is no worse punishment for vice than being unhappy with yourself and with others who share your faults. But he hates those who misguide great power when they suddenly acquire it. I would argue that he will do the same thing as soon as he gains that kind of power. For many people, their vices go unnoticed because they don't have the opportunity to show them. But as soon as these people feel confident in their own strength, their vices will be just as bold as those that prosperity has already revealed in others. These people simply lack the means to fully express their wickedness. It's like handling a poisonous snake that's stiff with cold. The poison is still there, but it's temporarily inactive. In many people, their cruelty, ambition, and indulgence are just waiting for the right circumstance to make them dare to commit the worst crimes. You'll quickly see that their desires are the same as those who have already shown their vices. Just give them the power to act on their wishes. Do you remember how, when you told me that a certain person was under your influence, I said that he was fickle and unreliable, and that you held him not by the foot, but only by a wing? You only held onto a feather. He left it in your hand and escaped. You know how he behaved afterward. How many of the things he tried ended up backfiring on him. He didn't realize that in trying to harm others, he was setting himself up for a fall. He didn't consider how burdensome the things he was chasing after would be, even if they weren't unnecessary. So when it comes to things we pursue and strive for with great effort, we should recognize this truth. Either they aren't truly desirable, or the undesirable aspects outweigh the benefits. Some things are unnecessary. Others aren't worth the price we pay for them. But we don't see this clearly. And we think of things as free gifts when they actually cost us a great deal. Our foolishness is obvious in the fact that we think buying only refers to the things we pay money for, and we consider things we spent our time and energy on as free. We would refuse to buy these things if we had to pay for them with our houses or valuable property, but we eagerly go after them at the cost of our peace of mind, safety, honor, freedom, and time. It's true that each person values themselves less than anything else. So in all our plans and actions, let's act like we do when we approach a vendor selling goods. Let's see how much they have to pay for what we desire. Often the things that seem free end up costing us the most. I can show you many things that in the quest to acquire them have taken away our freedom. We would truly belong to ourselves if only these things didn't belong to us. I would also like you to think this way, not only when it comes to gaining things, but also when it comes to losing them. This item is bound to be lost. Yes, it was just an extra. You'll live without it just as easily as you did before. If you've had it for a long time, you lose it after you've had your fill of it. If you hadn't had it long, then you lose it before you become too attached to it.
You need something?
You'll have less money, yes, and less trouble. Less influence. Yes, and less envy. Look around and notice the things that drive us crazy and make us cry when we lose them. You'll see that it's not the actual loss that bothers us, but the idea of losing them. No one truly feels that they've lost something, but their mind tells them they have.
I'll take care of the meat.
The person who owns themselves has lost nothing, but how few people are truly in control of themselves. Farewell. Letter 43, on the relativity of fame. You ask how I found out, and who told me that you were considering this idea, even though you hadn't mentioned it to anyone. It was the most well-informed person, gossip. What you say, am I so important that I can stir up gossip? Now, there's no need for you to measure yourself based on the world at large. Instead, think about the place where you live. Any point that rises above those around it seems larger at that spot. Greatness isn't absolute. It grows or shrinks in comparison to what's nearby. A ship that looks big on a river seems small on the ocean. A rudder that's big for one ship is small for another. So in your region, you're actually quite important, even if you don't think so. People are asking what you do, how you eat, and how you sleep, and they're finding out too. So you have all the more reason to live carefully. But don't consider yourself truly happy until you can live openly, until your walls protect you but don't hide you. We tend to think that walls are there not just to keep us safe, but to let us sin in secret. Let me share something that will help you understand a person's character. You'll hardly find anyone who can live with their door wide open. It's our conscience, not our pride, that has put doorkeepers at our doors. We live in such a way that being suddenly exposed feels like being caught in the act. But what good is it to hide away and avoid the eyes and ears of others? A good conscience welcomes the crowd, but a bad conscience is disturbed and troubled even when alone. If your actions are honorable, let everyone know about them. If they're shameful, what does it matter if no one else knows? As long as you know yourself, How miserable you must be if you despise such an important witness. Farewell. Letter 43, on philosophy and pedigrees. You keep telling me that you feel like a nobody, and that both nature and fortune have treated you unfairly. But remember, you have the power to set yourself apart from the crowd and reach the highest level of happiness. If there is any good in philosophy, it's this. It doesn't care about your family background. All people, if you trace them back far enough, come from roads. You are a Roman knight, and your hard work got you to this level. But there are many who can't even reach the 14 rows reserved for knights in the theater. Not everyone can enter the Senate, and the army is very selective about who it allows to face toil and danger. But a noble mind is available to everyone. By this measure, we can all stand out. Philosophy neither rejects nor favors anyone. Its light shines forth. Socrates wasn't born into a noble family. Cleanthes worked at a well and served as a hired hand watering a garden. Philosophy didn't find Plato as a nobleman, it made him one. So why should you doubt that you can rank with men like these? They are all your ancestors if you live in a way that honors them. And you do so if you convince yourself from the start that no one can surpass you in true nobility. We all have the same number of ancestors. There is no one whose origins don't go beyond memory. Plato says every king has slaves among his ancestors, and every slave has kings among his ancestors. The passage of time with its ups and downs has mixed everything together, and fortune has turned things upside down. So who truly is well born? The one who is naturally suited for virtue. That is the only thing that matters. Otherwise, if you look back far enough, everyone's ancestry goes back to a time when there was nothing. From the very beginning of the universe to now, we have all come from origins and have alternated between being noble and common. A hall full of smoke-stained busts doesn't make someone noble. No life lived in the past can give us gold, and what happened before us is like ours. Only the soul makes us noble. We can rise above fortune from any previous condition, no matter what that condition was. Suppose then that you weren't a Roman knight, but a free slave. You could still, through your own efforts, become the only truly free person among a crowd of gentlemen. How, you ask? By simply learning to tell the difference between good and bad things without copying the opinions of the crowd. You should focus not on where these things come from, but on where they lead. If there is anything that can make life happy, it is good on its own merits, because it can turn into something bad. So where do people go wrong? Since everyone wants a happy life, the mistake is that we think that things that lead to happiness are the same as happiness itself. While they seek happiness, they are actually running away from it. The essence of a happy life is freedom from worry, and the key to that freedom is unshakable confidence. Yet people gather the very things that cause worry, and while traveling life's uncertain road, they not only carry burdens, but even add more burdens to themselves. As a result, they move further and farther away from what they seek. The more effort they put in, the more they get into their own way and leave behind. This is what happens when you rush through a maze. The faster you go, the more tangled up you get. Farewell. Letter 45, on sophistical argumentation. You're complaining that there aren't many books available where you live, but it's not the quantity of books that matters, it's the quality. A short list of good books is beneficial, while a large variety of them just brings pleasure. If you want to reach your goal, you need to follow one path and not wander down many. What you're suggesting isn't really traveling, it's just wandering around aimlessly. But, you say, I would rather have your advice than books. I'm still willing to send you all the books I have to search through my entire collection. If it were possible, I would come to you myself, if I didn't believe you would finish your term of office soon. I would have made this journey even though I am an old man, no Scylla or Charybdis or any of those dangerous straits from the myths could have scared me away.
Need help? At last,
I
I am
would not
finally
only have
free from
crossed
this
over,
cell.
but I would
The
have been
Kieran
willing
Tor
to swim
sent me
across
from
those
Dalaran
waters
to
just to
investigate
greet you and
Arugal's
see
progress
you
with the
in person,
undead here in
how
Silver
you
Pine
spirit.
Forest. Little did we know that
Your
the wizard
request
had
for me
lost
to
his
send
grasp on
you my
sanity.
own
I must
writings
report this
doesn't make
mess
me
at
think of
once,
myself
but
as
before I
learned,
leave,
any
allow
more than
me
someone
to
asking
undo
for
the
my picture
magical
would
lock
make
on the
me think
courtyard
of
door.
myself
You
as handsome.
defeated Rethelgor, perhaps
I know it's
you
because of
will
your
survive
kindness
what
rather
lies
than your
beyond.
judgment. And even if it's because of your judgment, it's your kindness that influenced your judgment. But whatever the quality of my work may be, read it as if I was still searching for the truth and hadn't found it yet, but was stubbornly seeking it. I hadn't sold myself to anyone. I don't follow any one master. I respect the opinions of great thinkers, but I also have my own thoughts. These thinkers didn't give us absolute truths, but problems that still need solutions. Maybe they would have discovered the essentials if they hadn't also sought out the unnecessary. But they wasted a lot of time arguing about words and engaging in tricky debates that don't really accomplish anything. We tie words into knots and give them double meanings, only to try to untie them again. Do we really have time for this? Do we already know how to live or die? We should be focusing our whole efforts on making sure that things, as well as words, don't deceive us. Why, I ask, do you argue about similar words when no one is ever misled by them, except during the discussion itself? It's things, not words, that lead us astray. We must distinguish between things, not just words. We embrace evil instead of good. We pray for something that's the opposite of what we prayed for in the past. Our prayers contradict each other, and our plans conflict with our other plans. How closely flattery resembles friendship. It doesn't just mimic friendship, it often outdoes it. Flattery is welcomed with open ears and sinks deep into the heart, pleasing us even as it does harm. Show me how I can see through this deception. An enemy might approach me full of compliments, pretending to be a friend. Vices creep into our hearts disguised as virtues. Reckless is called bravery, laziness is called moderation, and cowardice is seen as prudence. There's great danger if we go astray in these matters, so we must label them clearly. Then consider this. The person who is asked if he has horns on his head isn't such a fool that he'll reach up to feel for them. Nor is he so silly that you can convince him through subtle arguments that he doesn't know the facts. These tricky debates are as harmlessly deceptive as a magician's tricks with cups and dice, where it's the very trickery that amuses us. But if you show me how the trick is done, I lose interest. I feel the same way about these tricky word games. What else can we call them but sophistries? Not knowing them doesn't hurt us, and mastering them doesn't hurt us. If you want to analyze the meanings of words, teach us instead that the happy person isn't the one the crowd thinks is happy, someone whose coffers are full of money, but rather the one whose true wealth is in his soul. He is upright, confident, and rejects inconsistency. He doesn't wish to trade places with anyone, values people for who they are, learns from nature, follows her laws, and lives as she commands. No force can take away his true possessions, and he turns evil into good. He is firm in his judgment, unshaken, unafraid, and while he may be affected by force, he's never thrown into confusion. When fortune throws her deadliest weapons at him, they might graze him, but never wound him. Fortune's other weapons, which defeat most people, simply bounce off him, the hail on a roof that does no harm to those inside and then melts away. Why do you bother me with what you yourself call the liar fallacy, about which so many books have been written? Come now, let's suppose my whole life is a lie. Prove that to be wrong, and if you're clever enough, bring me back to the truth. Right now, life holds as essential many things that are actually unnecessary. And even those things that aren't unnecessary don't necessarily make one fortunate or blessed. Just because something is necessary doesn't mean it's good. Otherwise, we'd be lowering the meaning of good if we applied it to basic things like bread or porridge, or other essentials without which we can't live. Goodness must always be necessary, but what's necessary isn't always good, since even the most trivial things can be necessary. No one is so ignorant of the noble meaning of the word good as to bring it down to the level of those everyday necessities. So, shouldn't you focus instead on making clear to everyone that searching for unnecessary things wastes a lot of time, But many people go through life just accumulating tools for living. Look at individuals, observe people in general. There isn't a single person whose life isn't focused on the future. What's wrong with that, you ask? There's a lot wrong with it. Such people aren't living. They're just preparing to live. They put everything forward. Even if we were paying close attention, life would still pass us by quickly. But as we are now, life finds us lingering and leaves us behind, as if it belonged to someone else. And even though life officially ends on the final day, we lose a bit of it every day. But I shouldn't go beyond the limits of a letter, which shouldn't be so long that it fills the reader's left hand. So I'll save our discussion about these overly clever thinkers who make arguments more important than anything else for another day. Farewell. Letter 46. On a new book by Lucilius. I received the book you promised me. I opened it quickly, thinking I would just skim through it later, as I planned only to take a quick look at it, but the book itself was so engaging that it made me read more than I intended. You can tell from this how well written it is. It had a smooth style, and didn't seem like something either you or I would write. At first glance, it could have been written by someone else like Titus Livius or Epicurus. I was so impressed and captivated by its charm that I finished it without taking a break. Even though the sunlight was fading, I was getting hungry and the clouds were gathering, I read the book from beginning to end. I wasn't just pleased, I was thrilled. It was full of wit and spirit. I would have said it had force, but that would imply there were moments of calm, or that it only had energy in parts. But what I found was a steady flow, a style that was strong and pure. Still, I noticed your sweetness from time to time, and your gentle touch here and there. Your style is high and noble, and I want you to stick with this approach. Your choice of topic also helped. That's why you should pick subjects that grab the mind and stir it. I'll give you a more detailed review after I read the book a second time. For now, my thoughts are still a bit uncertain, as if I had heard it read aloud rather than read it myself. You'll have to let me go through it again. Don't worry, I'll tell you the truth. You're lucky that being so far away keeps people from lying to you. Unless, of course, we've gotten so used to lying that we do it even when there's no reason to. Farewell. Letter 47. On Master and Slave. I'm happy to hear from those who visit you that you treat your slaves like friends. This is exactly how a sensible and well-educated person like you should act. People might say, but they're just slaves. No, they're humans. Slaves know their companions. Slaves know their humble friends. Slaves know their fellow servants. Because fortune has the same control over both slaves and free people. That's why I find it funny when people think it's beneath them to eat with their slaves. But why do they think that? It's only because the rich and powerful surround themselves with a crowd of standing slaves at dinner. The master eats more than he can handle, stuffing himself until his belly is stretched to the limit and can't function properly. So that he struggles more to get rid of all the food than he did to eat it. Meanwhile, the poor slaves aren't even allowed to move their lips to speak. Even the slightest sound, like a cough or sneeze or hiccup, is punished with a beating. There's a severe penalty for breaking the silence. All night long, they have to stand around hungry and silent. The result is that these slaves, who can't talk in their master's presence, end up talking about him behind his back. But in the old days, slaves were allowed to speak not only in front of their master, but even with him. Their mouths weren't sewn shut, and they were ready to risk their lives to protect their master. They would talk at the feast, but stay silent under torture. Finally, the saying became popular: as many enemies as you have slaves. They weren't enemies when we first acquired them. We made them into enemies. I won't go into other cruel and inhumane ways we treat them, but we often treat them not as humans, but as beasts of burden. When we recline at a banquet, one slave cleans up the vomited food. Another crouches under the table to gather the leftovers from the drunken guests. Another slave carves the expensive game birds, cutting precise pieces from a breast or a rump with skilled hands. Poor guy, his whole purpose in life is to... Letter 48. On quibbling as unworthy as the philosopher. I received the letter you wrote while you were traveling, a letter as long as the journey itself, and I'll reply to it later. I need to take some time alone to think carefully about the advice I should give you. You took a long time to decide whether to ask me for advice, so I should take even more time to think about what to say. Especially when giving good advice requires more than thought than asking for it. This is even more important when what is good for you might be different for what is good for me. Am I starting to sound like a Epicurean yet? But the truth is, what's good for you is also good for me. I'm not truly your friend unless I care about what happens to you as much as I care about what happens to me. Friendship means sharing everything that matters to us. There's no such thing as good or bad fortune for just one person. We share it all. No one can be happy if they'd only think about themselves and turn everything into a question of their own benefit. You have to live for others if you want to truly live for yourself. This shared life, carefully maintained, which makes us connect with other people and reminds us that all humans have certain rights in common, also helps us to value close friendships, which I started talking about earlier. For when you share a lot with another person, you will share everything with a friend. Now, my dear Lucilius, I wish those clever philosophers of yours would advise me on how to help a friend or a fellow human being, instead of just telling me how many different ways the word friend can be used, or how many meanings the word man has. Wisdom and foolishness are taking opposite sides. Who should I join? Whose side do you want me to follow? On one side, a man is the same as a friend, while on the other side, a friend is not the same as a man. One side wants a friend for their own benefit, while the other side wants to be a benefit to their friend. What you're offering me is just playing with words and splitting hairs. It's clear that unless I come up with some tricky arguments and use false logic, I won't be able to tell the difference between what's good and what's bad. I'm embarrassed. We are old men dealing with serious problems, and yet we're turning it into a game. Mouse is a syllable. A mouse eats cheese, therefore a syllable eats cheese. If I can't solve this problem, see what danger I'm in because of such ignorance. What a mess I'll be in. Obviously, I need to be careful, or one day I'll be catching syllables in a mousetrap. Or if I'm not careful, a book might eat my cheese. Unless, of course, the following argument is even smarter. Mouse is a syllable. A syllable does not eat cheese, therefore a mouse does not eat cheese. What childish nonsense. Are we really wasting our time on these kinds of problems? Do we grow our beards long for this? Is this what we teach with serious faces? If you really want to know what philosophy offers to humanity, it offers advice. Death takes one person away and poverty troubles another. Someone else is worried about their neighbor's wealth or even their own. Some people fear bad luck while others want to escape their own good fortune. Some are mistreated by other people while others feel wronged by the gods. So why are you making these silly games for me? This is not the time for jokes. You are supposed to be helping unhappy people. You promised to help those in danger at sea, those in captivity, the sick and needy, and those whose lives are at risk. Where are you going? What are you doing? Your friend who you're joking with is actually afraid. Help him, and take away the thing that's making him feel so scared, like taking a noose from around his neck. People around you are reaching out, asking for help. Their lives are either ruined or in danger of being ruined, and they're begging for some kind of support. They're hoping that you can save them from their worries, and show them the clear truth, especially since they feel lost and confused. Tell them what nature says is truly necessary, and what is just extra. Show them how simple the rules that nature has given us really are. Life can be enjoyable and easy if we follow these natural rules. But if we trust opinions instead of following what nature tells us, life becomes bitter and confusing. I would think your logic games were helpful if you could first show me how they help people with their real problems. What part of these games will help someone overcome their desires?
Well, everyone, we got Verigan's fist.
I wish I could say that they were just useless, but they are actually harmful. I can show you clearly.
Thank you so much.
That a noble spirit gets weaker when it gets involved in such trivialities. I'm ashamed to say what
we're learning about
give to people who are supposed to.
Roman virtue and Stoic philosophy and questing with us. That is Verigan's fist is a nice. That is a nice hammer. We're gonna get the int buff on it. That's gonna be even better. Have a good night, everyone.